Thank you for joining us for CBS 19 News at 10. I'm Jesus Martinez. President Trump said the U.S. carried out a successful strike against Iranian nuclear sites today. This comes after tensions between Israel and Iran entered its second week, and the two countries had exchanged missiles during that time. And just a few moments ago, President Trump addressing the nation on that airstrike against Iran. Earlier this week, the president said he would have 2 weeks to decide if he would get involved. Well, those 2 weeks became 2 days after those comments. Here's a little bit of that address. Take a listen.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close.
Well, President Trump said he did call Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. How did those strikes in Israel was aware of those attacks? Joining us in studio now is U.S. Representative Nathaniel Moran. Congressman Moran, thank you so much for joining us this late in the evening. First off, I want to get your thoughts on the decision of President Trump today.
Hey, Zeus, I totally support what President Trump did today. This is a historic night. This is truly peace through strength and action is what we're seeing. These three sites presented a clear and present danger to the United States and to our ally Israel. They needed to be taken out, and this was a decisive and necessary action.
Were you aware, maybe known ahead of time that this was going to happen?
No, I was not aware that this was going to happen ahead of time, and thankfully the president did this covertly so that it kept our troops out of harm's way as much as possible. This was something that needed to happen without prior notice. Now, we had given plenty of opportunity for Iran to come to the negotiating table, but they refused to do so, and they continued to pursue terrorism and a nuclear weapon, and that was simply unacceptable.
Now, in your opinion, do you think the U.S. should have been involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran?
Absolutely. We need to stand strong with our greatest ally, Israel. We absolutely need to do that. And Iran, as I mentioned, presents a clear and present danger to us. They have said for years that they want to destroy both America and Israel, and we've simply sat on the sideline and let them develop this nuclear weapon program decade after decade without taking the decisive action that needed to be taken. I've called for these strikes way before now, and I was glad to see President Trump do it.
Now, after these strikes, what consequences could we see here in U.S. soil?
Well, the first consequence is we need to secure our military close to Iran geographically. We know that there's probably going to be a response by Iran. We need to make sure that our military personnel and our civilian personnel abroad remain safe and are protected. And certainly we need to be diligent going forward. As President Trump said today, if Iran doesn't come to the negotiating table, there's more consequences for them. And truly tonight, I think we showed that our military is still the most powerful in the world, and it should be one that's feared.
Congressman, I know here in East Texas we have a lot of servicemen, servicewomen. What would you say to those families listening tonight that have family members in the forces? Should they be concerned?
Yeah, we're grateful for their service and their sacrifice, no question about that. They put themselves in harm's way every day. Whether or not a conflict like this is imminent or not imminent, their lives are in danger every day, especially when they're abroad, and we're thankful for that. Now's the time, though, when we need to secure our national security, and this truly is a threat to national security. The development of a nuclear bomb in the hands of an Iranian regime that has said they want to destroy America and its ally Israel, that's simply unacceptable. We cannot stand by and let that happen. President Trump again showed peace through strength tonight.
Of course, Congressman, you are our representative. East Texas is very rural. How should the federal government communicate what is happening in the world, in the Middle East especially right now with these strikes, to rural communities like East Texas?
It's being communicated minute by minute. If you're watching social media, if you saw the president's address tonight, which is completely appropriate, I was glad to see him come out and stand there and talk to the American people with boldness and with courage and with steadfastness, showing that strength that has been missing in the Oval Office for many years. And I think that this probably sent a loud and clear message to folks in North Korea and to China and Russia, and let them understand that America is not to be messed with.
And Congressman, I know in President Trump's address to the nation less than an hour ago, he said more attacks could be coming if Iran doesn't reach a peace deal. What do you think is the end game in this conflict?
The end game's peace. It's prosperity. It's stability. It is democracy. It is truly peace in that region. But Iran is the problem here. I bet you there are a lot of nations in the Middle East tonight that are plotting, not just Israel, but applauding because they did not want to see Iran with a nuclear weapon. They wanted to make sure that this regime, which is one that's tough to control, simply were put on their heels. And so I would suggest that probably there's a lot of Arab nations that are very happy about what happened tonight.
Congressman Moran, thank you so much for joining us on
My
this
pleasure.
issue.
Thank you.
Well, tensions in the Middle East are escalating as a result of the U.S. strike on Iran, and the surprise attacks comes amid growing global concern over a wider conflict, and the president is now facing immediate backlash from members of Congress. CBS's Cristian Benavides has what we know about the strikes and the global reaction coming in at this hour.
President Trump announced American warplanes dropped bombs on 3 nuclear sites in Iran on Saturday night. In a social media post, the president wrote, "All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. All planes are safely on their way home." Among the Iranian sites targeted, Fordow and a larger enrichment plant at Natanz. News of the strike comes hours after it was revealed B-2 bombers were dispatched from Missouri to Guam. The B-2s are capable of carrying barrack-busting bombs, capable of destroying the kinds of underground nuclear facilities Iran was believed to possess.
It's designed to penetrate to quite a significant depth before it actually goes off, and then to generate a large, burst after that.
News of the strikes was met with mixed reviews, with some on Capitol Hill noting that the strikes can be viewed as an act of war that Congress did not sign off on. In a social media post, Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky, a Republican, wrote, "This is not constitutional." Earlier in the week, the president indicated he would give it 2 weeks to decide whether to join Israel in bombing Iran. But throughout the week, and as recently as Friday, he expressed concerns over how close Iran was to having a nuclear weapon.
Within a matter of weeks, or certainly within a matter of months, they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. We can't let that happen.
The overnight strike comes after Israel launched its attack on Iran on June 13th, and just 1 day after European delegates met with Iranian officials in Geneva to encourage an end to the conflict. The whereabouts of Iran's supreme leader remain unknown. CBS News learned Friday the leader is reportedly in hiding as a result of fears of an assassination. Cristian Benavides, CBS News.
And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is congratulating President Trump on the airstrikes tonight. In a social media post, Netanyahu said the U.S. decision will change history.
In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do.
Well, as you've heard all evening long, this is a major step in this conflict between Israel and Iran, with the U.S. now helping Israel. This, of course, is going to have a ripple effect all around the world. Fraternity University political professor Dr. John Barrett joins us live this evening. Dr. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us. Just let us know you're on vacation, so we really do appreciate you joining us this evening. First off, I guess I want to ask, what message does this U.S. strike on Iran send to the world?
Well, it sends a strong message that we're going to support Israel in this war and that we're not going to be on the sidelines. And so we're committed now to a conflict in the Middle East, and that'll have widespread repercussions.
Was this strike legally justified without a declaration of war or congressional approval? And could this maybe become a constitutional issue or even set a precedent for future military action?
Well, we're really kind of in a gray area here because per the Constitution, the Congress must authorize the use of force, and they haven't explicitly done that. But historically speaking, the Congress has usually given the president broad latitude to use force when he thinks it's necessary. And so this will be another case in that vein. I think we'll see the legal arguments and a lot of legal wrangling come out maybe in part over the next few weeks, but in the longer run, it'll wait to see how successful this engagement is.
And over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've seen Israel and Iran both send strikes to each other, retaliating against each other. What do we know about Iran's next move now that the U.S. has stepped in?
Well, it's really hard to say. In the short run, it can be expected that Iran will try to lash out at some of our assets we have in the region. But in the longer run, there's a lot of new possibilities here because of the way that warfare is changing. We've seen, with Ukraine and Israel, them smuggling drones into countries and then striking the countries from within. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we see some attempt in Iran to try to replicate that and smuggle drones into the United States and attack the United States from within.
Here in East Texas, why should people care about what's happening in Iran right now?
Well, this involves us in a very serious conflict. We had just exited conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so now that we're involved in a conflict in Iran, that'll kind of add more to our plate because we're already involved in a significant way in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. There's a conflict looming between the U.S. and China over Taiwan, and so here's here's a third area where we're now engaged.
We know this is obviously going to have ripple effects, maybe from gas prices to global stability, as you were mentioning. For viewers at home, what can we expect immediately, maybe tomorrow and next week or in the coming weeks?
Well, I think what you're going to see immediately is a spike in the price of oil. That's going to be the most direct consequence. And then we'll just have to wait and see on how Iran tries to respond and how effective that response is.
All right, Dr. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Well, here in Texas, political leaders are weighing in on the news of those airstrikes. Governor Greg Abbott posting to social media saying simply, "I stand with Donald Trump and the United States of America." Meanwhile, State Senator Ted Cruz saying he commends the pilots and service members, intelligence personnel, President Trump, and the national security staff on tonight's successful and critical operation. Of course, this is still a breaking and developing story. We'll have much more on this on CBS19.tv and, of course, streaming on CBS 19 Plus. We'll be right back.